say everything's okay.
Hello, I'm Alana Levine, host of Little Known Facts. I've always been inspired by people who love what they do. On this podcast, I speak with actors who you love to watch do what they love to do. Little known fact about my guest today. His real name was changed to just his initials to keep the audience in suspense during his Tony Award-winning turn as a female opera diva spy in M. Butterfly. He never went back to his original name. Welcome humanitarian actor and friend, Gotham's Hugo Strange, a.k.a. BD Wong.
Everything's okay.
Welcome, BD Wong.
Thanks.
I want to start at the very beginning. So tell me what it was like to grow up in San Francisco.
I'm always really proud to say that I'm from San Francisco and to get into that, because I do think, looking back on it, that it was a really rich and lucky place to grow up. It was lucky to grow up there Asian American, and was lucky to grow up there gay. And lots of gay people who live in other places and lots of Asian American people who live in other places have completely different childhoods than I did, because it's a really diverse and gay friendly and there's a really strong Asian American community in San Francisco. So those identities within me were as strong as they could be. There was still lots of challenges related to them, because they were both kind of at cross purposes with my aspiration to be an actor.
So when did you know you wanted to be an actor, and when did you know you were gay?
Well, this is interesting that you just said the gay part, because I remember very distinctly having gay feelings at like 5 or 6 from watching Batman. And that's my very powerful memory. And so, of course, now I'm on Gotham, and I never really made that connection, but all roads lead to Batman, I guess.
Was that the only superhero that you were attracted to?
Yeah, because I wasn't into comics. I was into television, and those guys in tights were on television. And there was all this kind of it's a little kinky, but there was a lot of Batman and Robin, and Batman was always saving Robin,
Totally.
And Robin was tied up and wearing tights and stuff like that. I have no idea. I'm really not making any hypothesis about what any of that means or anything. But as a kid, I was really, really turned on by that. I mean, not specifically Robin being tied up, but just their relationship.
Well, I want to say, as an adult, I'm really turned on by you talking about it. So it's working for everybody.
Yes. Okay, great.
Okay, so that was the beginning.
No, but they were not just that. They were people. They were, it was a whole thing. It was them, the way they were dressed and stuff. It's no secret. Lots of gay guys have a thing about superheroes. Why wouldn't they? And so that was the superhero imagery that was available to me then. So growing up in San Francisco, though, I discovered music when I was in elementary school. Yeah,
Okay.
I started singing in the chorus, and I loved that very much. And the one thing I really remember is that I felt that it was the first thing I'd ever done that, how do I describe it? It was giving something back to me on these different levels. I had this teacher who really saw me, and she identified immediately. I think she was happy that she had this new kid that was so enthusiastic in her midst, but she was also really keenly aware that there was a potential or something like that. I'd never done it before. And I remember, and her favorite actor in the program was a kid who was my age but had started acting earlier. So he got to be Nathan Detroit.
Right.
And his name was Bob Cooper. And he's one of my great friends from high school to this day. I just spoke to him yesterday. And I remember she was walking down the hallway at the side of the auditorium, and she said, "Next year, Bob Cooper and you in The Odd Couple." And I was like, what? I don't know what she's talking about. I mean, I knew what The Odd Couple was, but I thought, she would say that. Why would you say that? And we never did The Odd Couple.
Why?
I don't remember why. But it didn't matter, because Bob Cooper was the mayor in The Music Man, and I was the Music Man. And then Bob Cooper was J.B. Bigley in How to Succeed, and I was J. Pierpont Finch. And the next play she did instead of The Odd Couple was she did The Matchmaker. And Bob Cooper was Vandergelder, and I was Barnaby Tucker.
Sorry, for some reason I got it confused and I was picturing you as Helen Keller, but that's a completely, I don't know what
That's
play.
the Miracle
The
Worker,
Miracle Worker.
Ilana.
But
Okay.
have you ever thought about playing Helen Keller?
No, it's too close to home.
Did you fall in love at that time in your life?
With a person?
Uh-huh.
No, I mean, really, this is corny as heck, but I fell in love with what I was doing to the point of distraction, to the point of obsession. This is all complicated by the fact that at the time, there weren't a lot of Asian people on TV. So I was really confused, because I started to think, well, maybe I would really want to do it.
Right.
And then I was immediately pulled myself back because I thought, oh, well, I don't understand how I would fit into this thing.
Where would the opportunities be?
I dragged all my friends to this tryout for a community theater show. And they were doing Anything Goes. We all auditioned for like a whole week, and then at the end of the week, the guy gets up on the stage with a clipboard and reads the cast list to everybody. Very community. It was a very quirky St. Clair. He gets up on the stage and he reads my name at the bottom of the Anything Goes cast list with the names of one of those two coolie characters. Okay, these two Chinese guys that come on at the very end. They're a plot device. And they're built on this old school kind of like Chinese guys who speak broken English,
Right.
who don't understand what's going on to them. And he said my name, and I was like, what? It was a real racial disconnect moment where I said, why would somebody give me this part? I mean, it was almost like I didn't know I was Asian, even though, of course, I knew I was Asian.
Right.
I was like, well, yeah, but I'm not that kind of person. I'm this kind of person. Like, I'm the dancing sailor kind of person. And trust me, I was full-on dancing sailor. I was really into – it was a waste of actually my talent.
Of course.
In the reality of the world. But,
Right.
of course, it made total sense to this director. And he gave me this part, and I was confused and really hurt by it. My feelings were really hurt because I was really stigmatizing that image of that person. I didn't want to be that person. I was an American kid going with Chinese parents whose my parents were really of real dual kind of identity. They grew up in Chinatown. They spoke Chinese in their houses, and then in the daytime or whatever, they went to public schools and wore bobby socks and they played basketball. And I have a connection, really do have a connection from my parents to the culture and through my family. I have a really close-knit, large family on my mother's side. But the language I don't have.
So at some point you made the decision to leave San Francisco.
Yes. I saved all this money and I came to New York. And that was super scary. And my parents were supportive. They were definitely not saying don't do this, but they were really concerned. They
So
were
what
really
year is
nervous.
this? Help me figure out where we are in
It's
time.
1981.
So 1981.
Yeah. And then I came to New York, and I came with their kind of scared blessing.
So between 1981 and was M Butterfly in 88?
And Butterfly, I was cast in M Butterfly in 87.
Okay.
And what I did was I got my cards and I started working, and I was doing like chorus work and musicals and dinner theater and stuff like that. And then I got the national where the West Coast company of La Cage aux Folles, and I was in the chorus of that. And that was in 1984. And I went to both San Francisco, my hometown, which was incredible, because we played at the theater where I was an usher when I was in high school.
That's
and all the
amazing.
same people were still ushers
That's
there.
amazing.
And they were the ones who threw me a party and bought me a cake when they said I was going to New York. And there was a lot of eye rolling. And then we went to Los Angeles, and we played in Los Angeles for 6 months. And at the end of that, I decided to stay in Los Angeles. And then I started working in television and film, and I got a lot of bit parts in guest starring bit parts and stuff in movies and TV. And I was making a living, but I was doing a lot of kind of rehashed stereotypes and stuff like that.
When
Because I
was
see-
Father of the Bride?
Father of the Bride was the wave of movies that I did in the 90s came from M Butterfly.
Okay.
And so this is just pre-M Butterfly.
So when you look back at Father of the Bride,
Uh-huh.
how do you feel about that character?
I really have affection for him. When I took the part, I was struggling a little bit with the whole kind of gay stereotype thing, and I was struggling with.
I just want to tell our listeners, in case they're not familiar with the film, that Martin Short plays this extravagant, over-the-top wedding planner, event planner.
With an odd foreign accent.
With an odd foreign accent. Hilarious. Can't tell where he's from, really.
Yeah.
And you play his assistant.
Yes. They wrote the part for an old Jewish guy. And then
They did? And then you came in and
I
they were
came
like,
in and just said, well, I'm just going to do an old Jewish guy because I don't want to do an old Chinese guy. That would be gross. I don't want to do that. And I think it can work. And they thought it was hilarious. And so they kept it. And then I said, well, you shouldn't change his name either. And they didn't. His name is Howard Weinstein. And
what were you even doing at an audition for Howard Weinstein to begin with?
I don't know how I got this audition. It was from one of those other eccentric parts that I'd played in other things. I was in The Freshman, and in The Freshman, I was a Chinese person, but I was so weird and odd and kind of unexpected or something like that they liked it.
Was Marlon Brando around when you worked?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any Marlon Brando stories?
Marlon Brando was the only person I've ever worked with who you had to wait a long time for. Like clearly the shot was done and everyone's just waiting. And they're all kind of busying themselves. And then he comes in and it gets completely silent in a way that's noticeable. Like all of a sudden, nobody even wants to talk at all.
He's here.
Yeah. And they're kind of whispering, whatever. It's the same way that people get when you're doing a really hard scene, like when you're doing like an emotional scene. It's like, okay,
we'll give him
let's
what he
lock it up,
needs.
everybody.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And he was very friendly, and he was very odd and off the wall. And I remember there was a scene, we were in a kitchen, and there was all this cutlery. And he said, hey, do you know how to sharpen a knife? And I said, no, I don't think I do. And he said, let me show you how to sharpen a knife. And he took a knife, and he took the stone, the wet stone, or that rod, whatever you call that rod, the knife sharpening thing. And he was like, you do this, and this thing protects your finger, and this, you do this. And he just showed me how to do it. Now I do think about that when I sharpen knives for whatever it's worth.
I'm going to think about him too.
Yes. I'll show you how to do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
And I don't have many stories about him, but he was pretty odd. And everyone was actually saying, and I guess I went through this whole kind of clueless period, rather self-involved, I think,
right.
period where
Has that stopped? Do you feel like that stopped?
I do feel like it stopped.
Okay, good.
And just checking.
I just want you to notice where the periscope camera is.
Yes,
but go on.
I'm looking right at it right now. But the thing is that during this period, I didn't really get what it meant to be in a movie with Marlon Brando. And everyone's saying, oh my God, you're in a movie with Marlon Brando. And did he talk to you? And I was like, I don't, no, he didn't say very much. And I wasn't there. And it was in a good way. I wasn't like acting weird around him because
or intimidated.
I wasn't. And I realized now that happened to me many times. I remember Bob Cooper, the guy who was Vandergelder, just told me yesterday how funny he thought it was and ridiculous and crazy and unbelievable that I was getting strangled by Sean Connery in the back of a car in this other movie, Family Business. And I didn't think about that at all.
What if it had been Liza?
Well, I mean, that's completely different.
If Liza had been strangling you in the back of a car, you would have paid attention.
Yeah, I would have let her. I would
Ms.
probably would have let her.
Ms. Minnelli, a little harder. Yeah. Anyway.
And I'm perfectly happy with my career in its totality. I have no complaints about that. But if you really ask me about what I really want and whether I've gotten it, I would say, as like many actors, oh no, there's much more that I would really want.
Was there ever a time when you really wanted to give up?
There are times of great doubt or of great frustration. I was on Law & Order SVU for 11 seasons. They were life-changing seasons. That was a life-changing period of time. One, it was me deciding that I was going to live in New York. And Jackson was just born, and I got this contract right after Jackson was born, and I said, I'm taking this contract. This is the dream job. And